Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Josh Thompson. I'm an account executive here at Microsoft. I'm joined by Shelly Avery and Aaron Perzondek, who are a US healthcare specialist and a director of our customer success unit. And so we're here joined today by a guest speaker that I will introduce here very shortly, and we're excited and for the content we have lined up and grateful for the time today. If you're new to the Voices in Healthcare Cloud, just kind of format or sessions, I wanted to start by just going over some brief housekeeping. So definitely want to hear from you, hear your questions. Ultimately, we are here for you, not to just get through an agenda or content. Keep in mind, though, that those questions are moderated, so we can reply as a one-off or publish the questions to the group. Everything will be recorded and posted in the blog post following the event. If you're not familiar with the Teams live event format that we have going here today, you should see in the top right-hand corner just a little kind of double chat bubble icon that you can click on to ask us just any questions or make any comments as we go through this session. Shelly, Aaron, and I will be in the background as our main presenter, Juan, covers the content today, just kind of moderating and triaging all those questions. So you'll see them kind of pop up here in the feed. Without too much further of a delay, I wanted to just introduce the topic very briefly. It's one that we're seeing a lot of interest and momentum around with healthcare organizations, especially healthcare providers, but it's really around boosting that frontline worker and clinical worker productivity by reducing login timeframes. And so without any further ado, I'll pass things over to Juan Sifuentes and let him introduce himself and really dive deep into this topic today. So, Juan, thanks for joining us.
And thank you for inviting me, Joshua, and I appreciate it, Shelly, as well. Thank you, Aaron, for this opportunity. This is actually just another option to share this new wonderful experience that is going to help a lot of our customers in the healthcare industry. Today, we're going to be speaking about login experience that is going to help boost the overall productivity, login timeframes that clinician takes in a daily basis. Their workloads are usually very centric to working shared priority endpoints, kiosk devices, and they usually don't have a one-to-one relationship for the most part. So they need sort of access to these applications and desktops quickly in a set of quick 10 or more seconds to be productive and be able to support the patients that are coming into the rooms. So before we start, and understand the solution, the audience that is target, the challenge that we're targeting, what is the business value around these two products? We need to understand first, the platform where it's going to be running. And that platform is Cloud PC, Windows 365. Essentially, in short, what this Windows 365 Cloud PC is a VM that roams with the user. It follows the user wherever it goes. Is directly attached to the user profile. So if you're familiar with SaaS experience, whenever you need to provision a mailbox to a user and give that 50 gigs, 100 gigs of storage to a user, you assign a license, the service gets provisioned, and the user is able to email, right? Very simple. Nowadays, you're able to achieve the same thing with Cloud PC. You assign a license, a Cloud PC or a VM gets provisioned for the user, and he's able to log in and access the applications, resources that are meant for their daily basis workloads. So that's essentially what this Cloud PC is, right? Dedicated instance, dedicated performance, set of compute options for those users that could be, in this case, those frontline workers that they don't really need a lot of compute options. You know, they usually work enough with just maybe a 2x4 or a 2x8 CPU because they most of the time they only access browser-based applications. So the beauty about this Cloud PC experience is that it's consistent across the devices that you connect from. So in this scenario, you know, clinicians that connect from multiple terminals, many different endpoints. Just like I said, there's no parity in between the user and the endpoint. So they could be roaming in between the first floor, second floor, third floor, right? And keep going and or moving into PC on wheels, so they call it, and continuously moving in between to access and provide support to those patients. So this PC helps them achieve that aspect by providing a consistent, persistent experience. So what Windows 365 offers is in a range of licensing options. Again, this is based on the use case, but there are many different options from 2x4, 4x16, and 8x32. From regular users, frontline workers, to information and knowledge workers, to up to even developers as well. The options as far as the endpoint connecting is very agnostic. So it can be either Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux as well. For all we care, you know, as long as the device supports HTML5, the user will be able to connect from the browser at any given time, anywhere in the world, from any device. But we do have a full-blown desktop experience as well, where you can connect directly using their Windows 365 app as the new application, or also the remote desktop client available on these platforms. So now that we understand what this Windows 365 solution is, let's quickly overview how customers who could position this solution in their environment, right? From a very high level, there are many options to implement this, but there's 3 specific options where you could really take advantage from this solution. And Windows 365 can be offered as an Azure AD Join Cloud PC device, fully hosted in the Microsoft network, you know, in the bare backbone. There is no needs from the customer to have a subscription or a virtual network, resources, or anything that is needed to run this experience. And basically takes 15 to 20 minutes to provision a provisioning policy, and the first VM is up and running. And you can very easily scale up to 500, 1,000 VMs, as much as you need to, you know, for the designated workload. Think of from a use case, if we can see that maybe these users are connecting overseas, that you need to provide experience, you can designate a provisioning policy to a closer region where the user is located to provide a low latency experience, right? Without much investment, without much of redesign architecture or building, redesigning your network or your VDI experience to try to accomplish that low latency experience. So that's option 1. Option 2 is essentially the option to bring the customer network into the picture, right? A lot of customers, they have a heavy Azure footprint, and they like to work wherein they incorporate workloads inside of their Azure network. So basically, Windows 365 becomes another workload, right? As one of those. So it's as simple as just dedicating a VNet where you position your cloud PCs, and then you global peer it into your production VNets to have visibility to multi-layer domains and networks, right? Very simple, you know, and it's an easy way for customers to integrate directly into the network. Regardless of the option, whether it's option 1 or option 2, Windows 365 is an out-of-box experience, meaning that the moment that gets rolled out, It's automatically enrolled into Intune. It's automatically enrolled into Azure AD as an Azure AD join or hybrid AD join. It is automatically baked with Microsoft 365 applications. It's already there. You don't need to deploy anything. And lastly, there's the option 3, which is more target for customers that have invested heavily on premise. These customers are more than usual to rely on SCCM, Active Directory, GPOs, MDM policies, those type of things that they have extensively across many different locations in US or maybe overseas, and they don't really have the ability to move into the cloud that quickly, right? The adoption is a longer term for them. So this is where they can really take advantage and stream a Windows 365 Cloud PC as a hybrid domain join using what they own today, GPOs, Active Directories, SCCM using co-management, the Azure AD Connect, all those things that are relies on premise, they can technically target into a Cloud PC and stream the Windows experience for the user. So now that we know the architecture layout, the solution, what entails, what essentially what it is, Windows 365. Let's understand also the difference in between Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop. Both of them, they're sister solutions. They're Microsoft products. There are enterprise solutions that are targeted to deliver desktop and application experience. Windows 365 is more of a DaaS platform that is meant to deliver that quick off the shelf, take, license a user, and then the service gets provisioned with everything in it, with the applications, Microsoft 365 applications, automatic enrollment into Azure AD, and a dedicated set of computing and storage options for the user to take advantage, right? The main target of Windows 365 Cloud PC is to deliver simplicity. That's the main goal, deliver simplicity and experience. Where Azure Virtual Desktop is a more robust solution where customers can probably transition from the traditional VDI to gain flexibility and control, where they can continuously expand and deliver high availability of failover options across global geolocations, where they might need to account for much deeper much deeper scenarios than Windows 365. But either the two, they're enterprise product. They're meant to target selected different use cases. We have a lot of customers that are running back-to-back the solutions in parallel. And as you can see, both of them support Tap and Go, Imprivata, IGEL login experience. So there is actually a lot of benefit in between the two solutions for partner integrations and vendor integrations such as Citrix and VMware. We both support the options to connect to those environments using their protocol base. But it is important to understand both of them, from a flexibility and simplicity standpoint. All right, so now we get the whole picture about Windows 365. How does it stand across traditional VDI and new VDI? And now let's, if we look at the bigger picture, where do most of the customers stand today? This is sort of a journey for their adoption to digital workspace transformation, right? Most of our customers are sitting right there on the first part where it's traditional VDI. They're fully accountable for the overall experience that is being delivered to the user, right? Wherever the user is located in the Pacific or maybe in the East area, maybe across US, overseas, wherever they're located, they own the experience. Whether they're using any of those solutions today, they are fully accountable how the Windows experience, that latency experience is being delivered to those users. If something happened, they need to account for how to fail over into a new platform to continuously deliver that experience. But not only that, they need to also account for new upcoming user demands for new leverage locations. And maybe, and nowadays we have living in a hybrid world where users are connecting from many different locations, not just from home, but from work-wise locations, and maybe sometimes traveling and maybe overseas as well. So customers now, they have the opportunity to take a decision to either move into a more simplified experience where they can just need to focus on the identity and the applications that are being delivered into that desktop using Windows 365 Cloud PC, right? Very simple. There's not a lot that they need to learn. Very simple to deploy it. Within an hour, you're going to have the foundation up and running, and your Cloud PC is within 15 minutes or 20 minutes. The customer also may have the option to move into Cloud VDI, where they can continue running that traditional experience with Azure Virtual Desktop. All right, and lastly, what are the future lines for Windows 365, right? So Windows 365 went GA back in 2020, and it's been already 2 years since this experience has been released. A lot of partner integration and vendor integration has been developed, but at the same time, a lot of engineering development is being targeted. Some of those are already here, like the Windows 365 app is the new option to connect to a Cloud PC environment from a Windows 10 and Windows 11. Windows 365 boot experience, the ability to unify the experience between the endpoint and the Cloud PC to act as one. So when the user logs in, whatever the authentication that is taking, whether it's a tap and go, Windows Hello, FIDO key, just username and password, anything will basically pass the token directly into the Cloud PC. So it only logs in one. The user doesn't really feel an impact. It is in private preview and it's meant to target on public preview soon. Windows 365 Switch and Windows 365 Offline are future developments that are being targeted still. Switch mode is essentially what it says, the ability to switch between the physical and the Cloud PC within the same endpoint. Offline mode is the ability to connect to a Cloud PC without internet access, right? We have a lot of customers that they have run a very locked down environment where the users, they need to continuously work, but without internet access. And lastly, Windows 365 Frontline, right? Windows 365 Frontline is our new licensing model, right? 365 Frontline is meant to target the audience that are shift workers, part-time workers, those users that don't need 24 access to a PC. These users that usually come and go because they're moving into shifts, 7 to 4, 7 to 2, and then they have the next shift moving into a different hospital, a different clinical location, maybe to a different organization, right? They don't need to access this PCs 24/7. They don't have any direct relationship to the device. So this is the audience that is being targeted for Frontline. You pay for one license and you get 3 Cloud PCs, right? It's now in public review as of April 6th, and a lot of customers are already taking advantage of this. A few links are being shared in the deck. You're welcome to go and click on them to understand and learn more about it. Yeah, these are some of the new developments that are being targeted for Windows 365. So now that we understand the overall platform where this solution will be running, let's now look at the experience that is going to be delivered into this platform, right? And this is where Windows 365 aligns with partnership of IGEL and Imprivata, right? So,
hey Juan,
sorry, go ahead.
Before you continue, there were just a couple questions that I wanted to run by you. You spoke to one of them, which was about the Windows 365 Frontline license, and you mentioned something about another one, so I just want to see if we can dive into that a little bit more. One of the questions was, do you see organizations essentially going all in with Windows 365 or AVD, or are they using both at the same time, in different scenarios? And I think you mentioned in passing that you see both. You see organizations in some cases go with both, but wondering if you could speak to that just a little bit more.
Sure, definitely. So Windows 365 as a whole right now, before Frontline, was a one-to-one relationship. So the enterprise product was very welcoming by customers, but not so much on the Frontline audience. Because again, the Frontline audience, they don't really need that 24/7 access. So what customers were seeing value on Windows 365 before was finding ways to accelerate the overall user lifecycle, the user onboarding process and the device lifecycle management process, right? That's where really Windows 365 wins every single time, because a new employee joining the organization, you still need to account for the overall onboarding process. And traditionally, customers, they're going to deliver a laptop or ship a corporate-owned device to that user located anywhere, go through HR to submit that form, and that time frame usually takes days to a week, sometimes more. M&A activities is another big scenario where customers are taking advantage of Windows 365, because they don't need to wait for that computer to be fully migrated or integrated into their environment. They can spin up a cloud PC and just directly assign it to that new user that is now visible in their tenant, and they'll be able to access applications and resources on day one, right? So there's many of those scenarios where Cloud PC is making a lot of excitement, and customers are really taking advantage. But now there's a new audience, right? Because we've been hearing a lot of requests from customers, this is great, I like it, it's very simple, you're making my life easier, but at the same time, I can't use this. This is not a cost-effective approach for my frontline workers. My frontline audience don't need 24 access into a PC. So that's what this Windows 365 frontline licensing model is gonna really succeed. Right now in a public preview, but we have customers already testing and running this on their environment. There's a lot of questions and a lot of developments that are being targeted to this new licensing model. Now, in reference to the other question that you said in between ABD and Windows 65, that actually happens very frequently. We have a lot of customers that run in parallel. And the reason behind is because, like, again, it's meant to target a use case, right? You have to understand what is the use case, the persona, the scenario that is being targeted, what other users are doing on a daily basis. Windows 365 is going to help to deliver that dedicated, persistent experience to those users, while ABD is going to be able to help to deliver application streaming or multi-session terminal server kind of options that the user are more familiar with, depending on the peaks of those concurrent sessions. So it really depends on those scenarios. But now, like I said, we have two products targeting multiple use cases: Windows 65 and Enterprise and Frontline for dedicated and shift workers, and then we have ABD for application streaming and desktop multi-session. So there's definitely a cohesion in between the two.
Awesome, thank you. There's maybe another kind of follow-up question, just kind of building on this, but it's around the cost for the different options. And so the question was basically saying that, hey, Microsoft has a very confusing licensing model where costs for simple functionality can add up. And so they're wondering, what's the average cost for each of these options? And I know there's variability, but can you maybe speak to that a little bit as well?
And yeah, we can share a link probably in the chat, to talk about, the pricing options that's obviously publicly available for anyone to go there. But Windows 365, think of it in a way that you're buying a service, you're purchasing a license, and that's going to give you all the compute options that you need, right? Everything that I need to account for these users that are, I don't know, maybe IT. I'm going to give them a 4x16 by 128 gigs of storage. Maybe they need more. Maybe they need a terabyte of storage. That's going to be accounting for those 500, maybe 1,000, whoever they need it, for the next year or 3 years. You have a predictable price pricing of how much you're going to be investing on the next 3 years or so. Where ABD is more consumption based. There's no licensing that you're purchasing. It's more of a whatever that you consume on a monthly basis or on a year basis, depending on your peaks or how much you need, that's how much you're going to be consuming. So it really depends on your scenario, your workload that you're targeting. That could either be more cost effective than the other. When we speak about pricing in between the two solutions, one question that becomes very often is between which solution should I go with, right? And really comes down to you need to account for all the the management plane that you're doing today in traditional VDI, right? Anywhere from maintaining the network, the image management, the pools, the clusters, the the user profile configuration. There's so much, aside from the storage and compute options design that I need to be account just to deliver that Windows experience that is not being account sometimes, and we're only look at the at the price that is offered for Windows 365. So you need to account for all those details to really understand, how much time is invested in my traditional VDI experience if I want to move into AVD or Windows 365.
Okay, and I did put the link in the chat, in the Q&A chat, by the way, to the public pricing. So it's got that. We just have to toggle over to the enterprise tab that's on that page, but that's out there as well. All right, so I think that's all the questions for now. And so I know you're just getting into the juicy stuff with the IGEL and Imprivata partnership, so I'll let you keep going there.
Awesome. Thank you, Joshua. So yeah, the idea behind this is to really understand that this solution experience is target for both products, right? And it's meant to work with both. Windows 365 is obviously aligned for this experience initially, but it works for AVD. At the end of the day, AVD and Windows 365 they run the same code in the back end, right? So it's a sister experience. All right. So now that we understand Windows 65 and AVD, we understand how Windows 365 plays. What is the audience? What are we target? What is the business value? What are the architecture options? What are my licensing options to target a cloud PC experience? Now let's understand the user experience that is being targeted with this login, tap and go login experience. So before we dive into what the experience is, again, just quickly, we need to understand who IGEL is and who Imprivata is. And IGEL and Imprivata, they are partners that have been working heavily in the healthcare space for years. And Windows 365, Microsoft now has partnered with them, to deliver this robust, healthy experience to improve the clinical workload, right? And it is IGEL is essentially an OS platform. It's not hardware. They're meant to target an OS into the device that it will allow to run Linux. It is based on Linux base, and it will allow to connect with their agent to a Windows 365 Cloud PC environment, right? So being thinking in a way like, devices that are very old, 10 years or more, you have the ability to maybe, instead of refreshing the device, using IGEL to repurpose the device and install their OS to extend the life of those devices, right? So that's essentially what IGEL targets. And one of their additional components is to enhance the user experience. And that user experience in this case is targets for Cloud PC. So how did they came into play, and how and what was the outcome? What was the objective that was being targeted, and in between Windows 365 and providing IGEL? Essentially, there was a major blocker in the healthcare industry. Again, since the beginning that Windows 365 was released, there was a lot of excitement from many customers, and most of them, they're very happy about the simplicity that was delivering this new solution. However, the main requirement, again, this comes down to this frontline workers, the clinicians itself. One of the main requirements of these clinicians is that they have a very unique experience. And one of those experiences is to maintain their tap and go login experience using a badge to tap into a terminal and log in. And that was one of the main requirements. Customers, they say, we like it, we would like to move forward, but we just need this experience to carry on the Cloud PC. We need to have that, right? We can't move into username and password. We can't use MFA authenticator app. It's just not something that doctors and nurses have time to leverage. They had to go quick, log in, and deliver experience. So this was a major blocker in the healthcare industry, and that's how this partnership came together to deliver that experience. Right. One of the main points to deliver on this was to increase the productivity of those clinicians, to secure the proximity authentication options of those users of those devices, and to modernize the healthcare IT using new security control options, because it's not only relying on Azure AD, but also Imprivata security controls along with IGEL. And one of the value here is that you're reducing the endpoint cost for the number of delivery options to accomplish that user experience. So there was that's how this business challenge was directly impacting us on the healthcare industry, and how this solution came to play. So this partnership in between Azure and Imprivata, how was meant to target, it started back in 2022, but recently was delivered and went GA recently in this year. The main goal in between Azure and Imprivata in working collaboration for Windows 365 is to deliver a simplified workflow for the user experience, right? And one of the main targets was to reduce the login timeframes, to support a secure, quick, and easy access to those clinical applications, and to allow a clinician, a nurse, or a doctor to just tap and log in directly into the device, and roaming between locations, whether it's in the first floor or just different devices within the first floor as well. Again, that roaming experience should carry on the same tapping go login across each one of them. So that's how this partnership really is succeeding. Not only in healthcare, we see value as well about this solution experience extending across other use. I'm hearing a lot of feedback from manufacturing and education as well, some other locations outside of US as well. So definitely this tap and go experience is something that is truly needed, for this frontline workers. All right, so now we understand who IGEL is. We understand how the partnership came to play. We understand the business challenge that was targeted. Now let's focus on the login experience. So essentially, this tap and go login experience will allow a clinician or a doctor or nurse to tap with their device. This happens to be an RFID and into an IGEL physical terminal to launch and automatically log into a Windows 365 environment, right? Within a set of seconds, they'll be able to log in. No username and password will be involved. They'll be able to just successfully log in. And there's the option, if needed, to support additional multi-factor authentication options, like if you want to add a PIN code, or if you want to add a MFA, if you want to add maybe target Azure AD conditional access, there's options, right, to support that additional security layer. Again, the solution was meant to target to frontline workers, in this case, the clinicians, to boost the productivity and reducing the login time frame to 10 seconds or less. Steering away from the traditional VDI that usually takes 50 or 60 seconds or more just using a username and password. That's the normal experience on any device. And the best part of all is, aside from this tap and login experience, is that it will support fast user switching. Fast user switching means that the nurse can log in and tapping into this cloud PC. Doctor can come and just tap into the same device. We'll we'll kick the nurse out of the session and log the doctor automatically into the session, right? So that fast user switching experience is very common in the clinician space, specifically by these frontline workers. So very, very known experience, used heavily for years. And this tap and go login by Azure and Imprivata will support fast user switching. So obviously this challenge, the objectives, the goal in delivering this partnership has to start somewhere, right? It has to be some sort of customer demand requesting this experience to be delivered. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of customers starting to target this experience. So this is a use case example how this came to play. We had this customer in particular that they had about 4,000 clinical workers, and that they were tapping in and out 100 times a day from this task workstation. This task workstation, they were just basically shared devices. There was no relationship directly with the user, right? So it was shared across all the organization. And their goal, their challenge that they were dealing with was that there was a slow booting process, was taking a long time to log into the PC. They were getting high latency experience when logging into the Windows platform, and it was there was no ease to scale into new locations. New hospitals were spinning up, new merger and acquisitions were being integrated into the organization, and they needed to account for that that experience to be delivered, and without investing much, right? So they sort of they were looking into a way to drive a cost-effective approach, and also looking to shift away from traditional VDI, without that management overhead of dealing, for years. So the main objectives, to deliver this experience was to elevate the business performance, right? The employee productivity, make their life easier, faster, and quicker for they can log in, the nurse and doctor, directly into the cloud PC. Accelerate the login experience to 10 seconds or less, supporting the tap and go experience in Windows 365, allowing the fast user switching, and obviously shifting in a more simplified management experience for managing their cloud PCs, right? In this case, Windows 365 was the way to go. So those were the main targets, the main objectives to deliver the solution integration. And obviously the last bullet, and that is actually one of the most important parts, is the budget, right? Have a predictable cost, have an understanding how much they will be expanding upfront for these 4,000 clinical workers to know, how much they need to define in the budget for the next 3 years or so. So that's how this solution came to play. That's how the customer demand was targeted, and how these objectives were delivered. So now let's go and see how this tap and go login experience looks like. I'm gonna pause the chat for a second. What you're gonna see here is how this solution came to play is between Imprivata, IGEL, login directly into a Windows 365 Cloud PC, supporting the fast user switching in a roaming desktop experience, right? So you're gonna see more than one user logging into this device. So this is the demo delivered by IGEL. They've been working very hard on this. This is the IGEL OS device. Here we have the user tapping in with a badge, user 3, right? It's tapping into the Imprivata badge reader. Now it's prompting for the PIN number to log in. Once the PIN is entered, the users automatically log into the cloud PC experience, right? No username and password is automatically logged in. Now user 3 is going to come in. It's going to kick the user 2 out of the experience, again, just by tapping and logging in. And then now it's also asking for the PIN code to authenticate. Again, the PIN code is a workflow, user workflow that can be customized in the Imprivata control plane. So similar experience. Now the only difference is that we're adding a security layer. We add for more MFA. So now the user prompt for MFA, accepted the MFA, and now it's logging into the cloud PC as user 2, right? So now user 3 needs to do something. Now it's going to kick user 2 out of the session. Now you notice that the session goes even much quicker than before. Why? Because there was no PIN code, no MFA involved. He goes right into their cloud PC, and all the applications resources that he had was still there. User 2 comes in, kicks user out by just logging in, and kicks the user 3 out of the session again. So this experience, again, this fast user switching experience is a very known workflow in the clinician space, right? They've been using it for years, and this is something that they truly needed if they were looking to succeed with Windows 365, right? So the demo continues to go off into many different scenarios to support the user 2 and the user 3. But again, I just want to remind you that you have full control as far as you delivering this user workflow authentication experience, right? You're relying on Imprivata control plane. You're relying on IGEL agent to support that experience, and you're relying on Azure AD to deliver those additional the security layer, whereas MFA, conditional access, anything that you want to add, and you're relying on Windows 365 as your platform to run the Windows experience, right? All those, they came together and delivered this amazing tap and go for clinician workload. So that's the user experience. Now, looking at the timeline, again, I mentioned that this started back in 2022. We worked with the team very heavily to target the solution experience. We were actually very successful on delivering a beta back in December. And now just recently in April 18, they went GA, right? They have successfully gone GA this year. They have a list of customers already ongoing delivering POCs, plan to move into a pilot. And this is based on custom on control. This is a feature control release. So if you would like to join and test this experience, we'll give you a way on how to communicate with IGEL directly, so you can invite your customers or the partner, whoever you want to test this experience. There's obviously, this is just the beginning, right? There's so much more to add. There's a lot more scenarios to discuss. That's actually what the other session that we're going to be targeting after this, to dive deeper, right? But in short, there's a roadmap that already targeting, and this roadmap is meant to target a Windows 365 app client. Today, as you saw it in the demo, they're using the remote desktop client. The remote desktop client obviously is or the AVD client that we call it, is fully known and supported in many different platforms, Windows, Linux, Mac, iOS, Android. But with the Windows 365 app client now is the new way to deliver a more personalized experience. It's the client that's going to give you options to restart the device, troubleshoot it, rename it, see the provisioning name policy, see your display name, see your computer options, so many different things. So what IGEL is doing is working to deliver a Windows 365 app as the new client to access that cloud PC while supporting tap and go experience as one of the main targets. And also the other target is virtual kiosk. Virtual kiosk is essentially by having a virtual PC running in the cloud and ready to just log in into a cloud PC. So essentially, you take a terminal kiosk device. You don't see it; it's automatically already logged into the cloud PC. But when you tap in, you're actually tapping into a virtual kiosk cloud PC device that will log you right into your session. There's a value around there because it accelerates the channel integration in additional clinical applications. And there's obviously much more that is being added to this, like fingerprint readers to authentication only, and hands-free auth that is being experimental. All right, so now we talk about the roadmap, we talk about the timeline, we talk about the demo. You've seen it, you know what it is. Now, if you want to learn more about this cohesive partnership in between Windows 365 and IGEL, you can go to igel.com/w365 to learn more. Again, this is one of two series. This series is more to target a high-level overview in between Windows 365 and IGEL, understand the solution, understand the platform, understand the business value, the challenge, and what the solution experience is meant to do. Right? We're planning to have another session where we will dive deeper and we'll invite IGEL and Imprivata to dive deeper into this architecture layout. What is the user experience looks like from an authentication workflow, understanding the scenarios that are being targeted for healthcare, right? Like those traditional back-end office or PC on wheels that we're all very familiar with, that will be able to dive deeper on how their vision is to target the login experience. So that will be, that's pretty much it, what I have prepared for today.
Awesome. Thanks, Juan. Took me a minute to find the unmute button. So in addition to the follow-up session with IGEL and Imprivata, just I think another question is like, how would you recommend organizations get started, or where do they go from here?
Yeah, so we can share a link into the chat on how to achieve that. Let me stop presenting. But yes, we have a way to connect to the team. Okay, I will share that in the chat before we're done. And perfect. That's essentially, there's a form that you fill out, and once you fill that out, and it gets an email generated directly to IGEL, and they'll be able to work with you and target this the solution integration.
Awesome. No, that's excellent. Shelly or Aaron, are there any questions that I missed?
No, I don't see any additional ones, Josh.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say to the audience, thank you so much for attending. Before we wrap up, I want to give everybody just another minute or two to post any comments or questions in the chat. We did have a couple of questions, but if you have any, please post them now. While we're waiting to see if any other questions are posted, we did put a link in the chat for a form if you would like to get invites from us for our future sessions. As Juan mentioned, we are planning on doing another session and bringing IGEL on so they can go a little bit deeper into their solution. But we always are trying to bring you guys great healthcare specific technology and content that can bring value to your organization. So we really do appreciate all of you. And if you ever have any comments or recommendations on content, we're always open to hear from you guys. Let's see. So we're going to put a couple of a form in the chat as well that Juan mentioned for the Win365 tap and go login experience. So that should be coming across to you for you to grab.
I just put it in the chat, just in.
Yep, perfect. All right, you can always follow us on the HLS blog. aka.ms/HLS blog is a great place to go, but we do have a short link specifically for these webinars. If you like them, you can follow I think it's a tag or a filter on the blog, or come and bookmark this link that you see here. We post our blogs there for upcoming sessions, and then after the fact, a few days later, we post the recording. So if you were late or you love this content and you want to share with others, we'd love for you to go there and grab the recording and share it out with folks on your team. So Juan, I don't see any other questions. I don't know, Josh or Aaron, if we have any last minute questions or comments. If not, we can wrap up and give some people a few minutes before their next meeting.
I think that's everything. I don't see anything else.
I agree.
All right,
yeah, I don't have anything else, but thank you so much for allowing me to join. Shelly and Joshua, look forward to the next session.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Juan, and thanks everybody for attending. We'll see you all next time.